All right, hello and welcome to another Expert Inside interview. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop, online sales magazine and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego. And today I'm delighted to be joined by Mitchell Levy, who's just up the coast a little bit in Silicon Valley in Cupertino. How you doing, Mitchell?
I'm doing great, John. Nice to be on the show with you.
Yeah, thank you. And Mitchell is a global credibility expert, two-time TEDx speaker, an author of over 60 books, a certified stakeholder center coach, and an executive coach at Marshall Goldsmiths, who's a friend of the show too. 100 coaches. You're an accomplished entrepreneur, created over 20 businesses in Silicon Valley, including 4 publishing companies that have published over 750 books. That's impressive. And you have provided strategic consulting to hundreds of companies and have been chairman of the board of a NASDAQ listed company. So, what we want to talk about today is this whole idea of clarity and credibility. And it seems to me, Mitchell, is that we're really, really good at making things obtuse and nebulous and vague and complicated and hard to understand. We're really bad at making things simple and clear and understandable. As the clarity expert, why is clarity so difficult for a lot of people?
I love that question. And as much as I get excited about this, no one really has asked that question in that way. It's when I think about clarity and having just something that may or may not have been on that list. I interviewed 500 thought leaders on the
Yeah.
concept of clarity, and 98% don't have it.
Mm.
So they may think they have it. And the question is, even if they do or don't, they don't necessarily think they need it. So why do we make things obtuse? Maybe in the old days, it's very similar to command and control being tossed out. Maybe consultants wanted to be more obtuse so they could charge more money if the clients didn't understand what they were doing. I
Right.
but but in today's world, that no longer is acceptable.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you, and I think that that probably had a lot to do with it. We've all had the consultant speak coming at us. We know what that's like, but it seems to me also it seems to you also, Mitchell, that there's something very fundamentally human about this too, because we're very, if we say, oh, create something, like we're very good, we could create something that has like 20 components to it. But if we said we want to keep it really simple and just get it down to three, that's really hard for us, because we're kind of hardwired to want more and more and more options and choices, and then get paralyzed by those options and choices. So how do you help people start to get over that and start looking at things simple? Because I feel like things are simple if you look at them in a simple way, but we don't.
One of the things we could do live, we didn't talk about this ahead
Mhm.
of time, is when I sit with companies or individuals, is I help them articulate with clarity where they are executing their purpose in less than 10 words. So
Mhm.
here's the cool part. If you can articulate in less than 10 words, it now is something that, first of all, other people can remember, and more importantly, you could remember, and it acts as a compass.
Mhm.
And so when I think about that, if you're okay with it, we could do it live,
Sure.
or I'll tell you the formula. We could decide whether or not you want to do it together.
Yeah, sure.
And the the thing, I will give it a name. This is, maybe it's consulting speak, but because I reference it this way, I thought I'd share.
Mhm.
It represents your customer point of possibilities, or I summarize it as a CPOP. It
Mm.
represents, I call it a CPOP. It's your customer point of possibilities. And if you have a credible company, or if you're a credible human, the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is that you are of service to others.
Mhm. Yep.
So the formula, John, is it's two things, and I'll ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Is it okay if we
Yeah,
can we
yeah, yeah,
play
yeah.
live? And okay,
Sure.
so the formula is simple. By the way, simple is not easy.
Yeah,
Okay.
that and by the way, Mitchell, that is one of my favorite sayings, to just remind people. It's saying simple does not necessarily equate to easy. So it takes work to get simplicity takes work.
So, and what happens is we've had all these amazing people come along, and Simon Sinek came up with the why. So we always think we have to do the why first. The the CPOP is the who and the what.
Hmm.
So if you're a credible human, who is it that you serve? So that's the first question. One, two, or three words, not 10 words, 15 words, just one, two, or three words. Who is it that you serve? And then from their perspective, the second part of the equation is what is the pain point that they're experiencing that they want to get over, or what is the pleasure point that they want to reach? And
Right.
depending on the who, sometimes you may decide to go with a pleasure point versus a pain point. 80% of the time, pain points work really well. But
Hmm.
I have not, like I said, I've done this over 1,000 times, and it is always 9 words or less.
Right. Excellent. Well,
All
I
right.
mean, for us, it's very straightforward. Is that we serve salespeople and sales leaders, and we help them do their jobs more effectively and service their customers more effectively.
So I'm writing this down.
Mhm.
Do you mind if I take you on a teeny couple question exploration?
Oh, let's go.
All right. So you said salespeople and sales leaders.
Hmm.
Do you mind if we just pick one and say sales leaders?
Okay, let's go with sales leaders.
What I often think about, because if we said salespeople and sales leaders, that's 5 words,
Hmm.
and we're already way close to the end.
Right, right.
If you said sales leaders and you came up with something good, a salesperson would say, "Well, I lead. I'm my own leader, so
Yeah, yeah.
that wouldn't necessarily be a
Which
bad
we
thing, right?"
which we would agree with. Absolutely.
Okay, so the next question is let's try two different things. What is their pain point that your audience is typically experiencing?
Mhm. Yeah, it's very simple being a CRM company. The pain point is that either their current CRM or whatever system they're using is not user friendly and requires a lot of overhead on their part in order to update it. And as a sales leader, they're not getting the information they need because the salespeople aren't using the system because it's not user friendly. That is the number one pain point, is basically adoption and data integrity.
Ooh, okay. And what would be a pleasure point?
A pleasure point would be when they discover that a lot of the routine, rote, and repetitive tasks that they have to undertake can actually be automated within the system. So now that they can start to focus on higher level, higher value activities. So that's both from a salesperson and a sales leader point of view. And that way, that now you're getting the data, now you're getting the data integrity, because if you are automating as much as you can automate and take away the data entry pain point, you then now can focus on the relationship building part and understanding your prospect and customer more. And the pleasure there is now you're actually focusing on the part of the job that you like, which is the selling part, the part of the job that technology can't do, which is building the relationships. And so it's a win-win for the sales leader, the salesperson, and the customer, the prospect, or the person on the other end.
Hmm, that's interesting. Okay. So I think I have two I want to share, a pain point and pleasure point. But before I do that, um, when when you're talking to clients, how do you lead, and what do they resonate with of those two different areas? What do they resonate most?
But I think mostly it's when you talk about forecasting accuracy, revenue, sales process, and when you talk about those, people normally will tell you, yes, we have problems with forecasting. We have quite a process because we have to go and validate and check and revalidate and call up salespeople and all of that. And so forecast accuracy is a huge pain point, and when we can show and just revenue accuracy, and when we can show that because of the way the system's set up, because of the automation, because of the user friendly and the visual nature of the products, that people want to actually use it, says people actually use it, you are addressing that issue.
Got it. All right. So the downside. So I'll give you two, and I'll
Yeah,
put it in chat so you can see it.
sure.
The A potential downside and caveat is we could have a lot more conversation because you every time I ask a different question, you come up with a different set of buzzwords and focus. I'm not saying this is bad. I'm just saying that I couldn't really zero in on the thing that most resoundingly resonates with your heart,
Hmm.
right? And that's ultimately at the end of the day. The CPOP represents the frequency. I'll do one last question.
Yes.
How did you get into this? What was that pain point? What was that? What is that thing, given your career, that you said, "Hey, this is me. I need to do this."
Yeah, it's actually quite straightforward, Mitchell. Is that I ran a couple of companies for a parent holding company a number of years back. One of them was Huthwaite, which is spin selling. Neil
Yeah, yeah,
Rackham's
I
book,
remember.
and yeah, Neil, great guy and everything. But anyway, the company he'd been bought out and it was owned by the company, and we did obviously sales performance improvement consulting with organizations, big and small, large global organizations. And the biggest pain point that I found, Mitchell, was that you can go and you can train salespeople on methodology, right? And you can train the sales managers on methodology and that. But if it's not embedded, if what you're teaching them is not embedded in their daily work practice and their workflow, which obviously normally revolves around some technology like a CRM system, I couldn't, when I was back doing that, we couldn't get that to work in a Salesforce or any of these other things because they were impossible to customize and to embed methodology. And when I came across Pipeliner, when Nicholas, the CEO, this is just an interesting story. He reached out to me when I left and kind of went out on my own because I'd written a book, and one of the chapters was around how CRM sucks, right, and how salespeople hate CRM. And he said, "I want to prove you wrong." And I said, "Bring it on," because I don't think you can. And he did. He showed me, and that was even the system like 10 years ago. I was able to do what I couldn't do before, right? Which was embed methodology. Therefore, I said, finally, here's a system where that can really support salespeople in their daily work practice, can have them using best practices, can help them so that they know where they are. And because sales methodologies and sales process should be a living, breathing thing, because as you know, customers change. They have an awful habit of changing their behavior. And therefore you have to be constantly on top of that and being able to evolve and update your processes as you go. And again, this was something that you can do very easily in Pipeline or CRM that you can't do in other CRM systems. So that's really what attracted me, was finally, because I had started off in learning technologies. Finally, I thought, wow, I can bring the I hate to use the soft skills word, but the sales skills, the methodology, and the technology together, and we can have something really powerful.
Oh no, that I actually, truthfully, there's nothing wrong with what you just said. You could change your mindset, but if your tools to use the mindset aren't going to support the mindset,
Yeah,
you're gonna default back to what you know because they're embedded into the tool set.
exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
interesting. All right. So, by the way, that was great. I'm glad I asked. I'm going to put in chat. I'm a visual, so you
Sure.
have to see it. You have to tell me which one resonates more with you. One was more of a pain point, the other's a pleasure point. Right. So, the pain point is sales leaders dealing with ineffective CRMs.
Yeah.
I specifically chose the word dealing.
It-
But there's so many other things because that's kind of it's an interesting word, right? Um, The other one is sales leaders automating the right stuff. And notice I when I said right, I put it in all caps because that could be an acronym and you could turn it into
Sure.
something really interesting. Um,
Yeah.
it If I'm listening to you, you get the most excited when you talk about CRMs and how they don't work and how this one does.
Mhm.
Either way, your tell me more. If you did the second one, your tell me more would focus on the um, the CRM side. Do either of those resonate a little bit more
Oh yeah,
with you?
no, 100%, and I think you're right. I mean, right now, I think with CRM, it is largely it's a pain point for most people, and you're right. Dealing with ineffective, and I like to use that word dealing because that is what a lot of people are doing, is dealing with ineffective CRMs. I had when I first took over that company, Mitch. I'll just give you an example, right? Um, Huthwaite is. The parent company had a huge install of Salesforce, so you had to use Salesforce in your business, and and when I was going through the org chart and stuff, and I was looking, and I said, Who's this person here?" And they said, "Oh, that's the person who looks after Salesforce." And I said, "Oh, the Salesforce admin." No, 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 they're not Salesforce admin. And I said, "Well, what are they?" And they said, "Well, what they do is, you see the way you have a Thursday meeting with the salespeople to go through the forecast and the pipeline." And I said, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, she spends the few days before that calling up the salespeople and making and going through Salesforce with them and make sure everything's updated, make sure the stuff is right and the stuff." And I
Mm.
said, "Hang on a second. I'm paying somebody quite a lot of money to check to make sure that the salespeople have put their information into the system so that when we come to the meeting on Thursday, they're going to have the right information and I'm not going to be frustrated or whatever." And they said, "Yeah." And I said, That's madness."
Yes, it is.
But for me, that underlines this, because that's what a lot of people are dealing with ineffective CRM, is that they're having to compensate. They're having to do other things to compensate for the fact that their people won't use it, or it's clunky, or they can't customize it the way they want, or they have to workarounds or whatever. So yeah, it's a source of frustration, and that's why when I put it in my book, I had my book was about sales and stuff, but it was about using historical battles called Winning the Battle for Sales. The CRM one was, I think it was David and Goliath, because the original story, of David is like the king came to him and said, "Here's the greatest, latest armor and everything," and he put it on and he was like, "I can't even move in this." So he threw it away and he got a slingshot out and knocked out the old giant. But my point being is that if the tool has to work, right? It has to serve the purpose. Just having a great big and saying we just got this fancy great new system, if it ends up just weighing you down, then you've actually gone backwards. You might as well have stayed with just using Excel spreadsheets.
So I love that. So here's what's interesting. My tagline, if
Mhm. Okay.
for those who are watching, it says, "What's your CPOP?" So Mitchell Levy, what's your CPOP? And your CPOP, when you could say it, you could now lead when people say, "Who are you? What do you do?" You lead with a hook. There's a class of people I've worked with my entire life. I was myself, that gets the most out of what I do. Then you do a pause.
Hmm.
Sales leaders dealing with ineffective CRMs. Now, if you're talking to someone who's a referral partner or a prospect, you're going to hear the grunt.
Hmm. Yeah.
And now, what you just said afterwards, not necessarily the story of the past, but what went
Sure.
on after that, you would say that. What happens is, what I'm going to encourage you to do, take a look at, and by the way, your website, your LinkedIn was good. If you wake up tomorrow morning and off the top of your head is sales leaders dealing with ineffective CRMs, you're going to want to change your website and your LinkedIn profile.
Hmm.
It just becomes a compass where you're going to make decisions and demonstrate behavior that's in alignment with that. That's how you're going to lead. That's how you're going to focus. That's how you're going to get people excited about referring you. What the next time a salesperson says, "Man, this CRM system, yuck," you want them to think about you. And so this is the compass. If you do it right, your compass is turned into a magnet where
Yeah.
you're just pulling people in because that CPOP is so memorable.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think, what you're saying as well, Mitchell, is like, there's a lot of companies that so it's a CRM is a very noisy space, and there's a lot of buzzwords and all that flowing around, and I think that the more clarity, to use what we're talking about here, the more clarity you have, the better, because CRM, even in itself, the term, the sector is somewhat nebulous itself now, because we've see on third party review sites, we'll see, here's the top, 100 CRMs, and you look and you go, like 50 of them are not CRMs. But people, so you're dealing with a category that's bad, ill defined, if you like.
That is what happens. And but what's interesting, I thought I mentioned, is you said, Mitchell, what is clarity, and
Yeah,
how would you help people do it? And I just thought, instead of actually talking to you about it theoretically, is actually share it.
yeah,
And that to me is clarity. It will, for anyone who does this for themselves. I do once a month. I do a 90-minute clarity session where everyone's guaranteed a CPOP. The most important part, John, this is it's really cool. If you think about your clients,
no,
if, if they had their CPOP, your CRM could help them with CPOPing.
yes, absolutely, yeah.
Right. And that's what I'm looking for. The thing that I found that's interesting, John, is when people actually get their CPOP, their customer point of possibilities, and they feel it,
Hmm.
it turns out to be the frequency in which they vibrate as a human,
Right.
and they're feeling aligned as soon as they get it. And then for some odd reason, it's very easy to tell, but it's very similar to the how you started the conversation with things being obtuse. 90% will get out of alignment between 2 hours and 2 weeks, because the
Mm,
world comes in and there's
yeah.
all these different approaches and formulas. I am personally looking for firms like you, firms that actually do C-popping effectively. Because if you could help the clients of yours be able to take their CPOP, their level of
Mhm.
expertise, and then deploy it for them in the way that they deploy it,
Yeah,
you're using the hard tool to help them with their soft tools, and
yeah.
that's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's fantastic. Well, listen, Mitchell, this has been. Thank you so much for going through this exercise. It's been fantastic. All of Mitchell's information will be below this video, by the way. But before we go, please do tell people a little bit more about you and what you do.
The best way to reach out to me, and then I'll talk about what I do from there. It's just my website. It's mitchellevy.com, and it's
Mhm.
mitchellevy.com. And when you go there are things if you need to book time on my calendar, you can get access to it. I spend time in the world of executive coaching. I specifically am focused on my CPOP is Inc. 5000 CEOs leading the future with executive gravitas.
Mhm.
So at the B2B level, that's the primary sale. And then at a much more tactical level, it is helping companies grow their LinkedIn presence and having the ability to have leads and opportunities come in. So we'll have to talk about how do we pull that into what you're doing
Mhm.
with Sales Pop. But I do have an ongoing program where I'm helping business owners do that. So that's a much more tactical side.
Excellent. Well, listen, thanks again, Mitchell. Thank you all for watching and listening. See you all again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, John.